Good morning, everybody.
Good to see
Welcome to Master
everybody.
Your Craft.
Thanks for putting up with a little bit of our small talk behind the scenes as we catch up on all the things going on, and which is like sort of an unintentional segue to this topic, right?
Yeah,
Time blocking,
absolutely.
and I'm Jen. I'm fortunate that I have you here with us because, I mean, as you know, you are. I mean, I want this to sound like the true compliment, but out of the two of us, you're clearly the one designed to talk about this, but also uh, the way that you manage your time and do all of those things and just have that sense of structure is so important. And as we talk about, let's jump to the next slide. As we talk about time blocking, I, I am well aware that I think it's kind of the one of the unsexiest things we talk about. You're like, ugh, time blocking again. But
No.
Jen, I know when we were prepping for this, we sort of just talked about how really crucial it is and the places the places it makes a difference in our business. And I don't know, you
Mhm.
have some thoughts on this. I'd love to sort of hear.
Oh, absolutely, I do. So, in my former career as a teacher first and then an administrator, you have to time block. You're forced to, especially as a principal. There are some things that, obviously I have to do, but then are interrupted by kids making poor decisions. To put it simply.
Wait,
Um,
that sounds like people
yeah,
I know.
right, right, right. So, and it messes up your day. So it's similar to a real estate agent that has their time blocked, and then a client calls and has an emergency, and you have to
Yeah,
stop, and then you can choose to stop and deal with that at that time, or
yeah,
you can, stay true to your time blocked schedule, which we'll talk about how to manage all of that because I know that's a big question when we talk about this. It's one of the things when Jake and I were prepping for this, we were talking about, it, and I said, man, to schedule client time or to deal with emergencies that clients have, I know that's going to be a number one question. Why shouldn't we just deal with it right at that moment? So we'll
yep,
get into that here in a little bit, but I
yep.
know that will be a question.
Let me add you as a spotlight there. And you know, as I'll say this, being on the other side of things, as a sort of a non-structured sort of person, and there have been many times in my life where it just creates chaos. And I remember another coach said to me, "There's freedom in structure." And
Mhm.
it really hit in a great way for me because I think a lot of us are like, no, I need to be flexible and I need to do these things and I need to have this sort of dynamic. And you and I talked about this the other day. The end result for me is always I end up spending an awful lot of time punishing myself for the things that I'm not getting done. And
Mhm.
I hope this resonates with some people out there, but it's like it almost causes more stress, right? We know this. The activity that you avoid for weeks that you end up doing, you're like, oh, that took like 10 minutes. But I
Oh,
stressed about it for
absolutely.
10 days, right? Like the other side of that. So I think
Absolutely.
this is one of the more important things that we're going to talk about. And, we timed it in this session because it really relates to a lot of the things we've talked about before. And
Hmm.
it's the short answer of how we actually get stuff done. Right, Jen, I love that you put this. Real
Hmm.
estate agents don't lack time, they lack protected time. Um,
Absolutely. And here's
Go
the
ahead.
thing. So if you don't have a system, a way that you work, a time blocked schedule, you're constantly working in, like what Jake said, which is more stressful reaction mode, responding to text, showing homes, random marketing tasks,
Yeah.
last minute client needs. You're constantly doing that. And you're actually less efficient because you're not doing similar tasks blocked together.
Hmm.
Instead, you are working on a flyer over here, but then you also need to schedule showings over here. You need to, at some point, put something on social media. So I better do that real quick. And they're
Yep.
all such different tasks that unless you have zero ADHD,
I'm looking around the room and I don't
then
know.
I don't know, right? Um, that is really difficult to manage. So by time
Yeah.
blocking, you're actually going to be more efficient with your time and get more done and put some things in your schedule that are going to help build your business.
Yeah, along the lines of those phrases that stick with me, I think it was even part of the same conversation, but this actually might be a Brian Buffini piece that he said, but and it really has resonated with me. What we give to one, we take
Mhm.
from another. And at first you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But then you really start to think about that. And when we talk about family, spouses, partners, ourselves, our mental health, all those things, right? If I'm making the impulsive decision to give something here, it means something over here is losing that. And that might just be an hour of Jake's sit around and do nothing time, or it might be time away from hanging out with your friends or working out or one of those things. And I think when we look at time as this physical, almost like dollar amount or a token or something you exchange with different things, it gives us the permission to make some of those harder decisions. Hey, if I do this, I have to give up something over here. And
Mhm.
I think that reactionary mode, we all live there at times. It happens on a regular basis. We just don't want that to be the plan, right? And Jen,
Right.
tell us about the buckets.
Sure. So, kind of, let me go back a little bit to what you were
Oh
talking about.
yeah,
And we talked about this a lot in another session where we talked about buying back your time. So,
yeah,
this is a little different. It relates very much. It overlaps with. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing. You can go to the next slide, Jake.
yep,
We're going to talk a little bit about marketing. We are going to talk about what is a good use of your time. Now we're taking it a step further and we're saying, okay, let's actually time block our day so that we
yeah,
can be most efficient and so we are earning the most for our dollar.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
guess we did talk about that. It's like,
mhm,
the marketing calendar is like, well, what am I going to do? But then when
mhm,
it comes to this, you're like, but I still need to do it, and or pay someone else to take over that
correct.
task for us. Yeah,
Right.
yep,
So the big five buckets that you have as a real estate agent are your non-negotiables, lead generation, marketing, client service, and personal development and business management. So when we're talking about non-negotiables, those are things like, do you have a young kid that you need to drop off every day at school or pick up every day at school? Do you
yeah,
have Bible study every Thursday morning? Do
hmm,
you like to work out? One of my non-negotiables is my workout time. It is 4:30 in the afternoon. I like going to that class because that's when my
yeah,
friends are there. And so, yay, I got released to go do that after my
yeah.
Achilles
That's
surgery
right.
last at the end of last week. And I had to talk to my boss to see
Yeah,
if that was going to
like,
be okay because my hours need to shift just a little bit so that I can make those
yep.
because that is really important in my life to keep me balanced. So,
And I'll interject there just on
mhm,
those non-negotiables. I am not always particularly good at setting boundaries, but I also do know that those boundaries we have in our business, and I'll go on the record to say this: the more an agent sets business hours, the better overall everything else becomes. And I know that we wear that as such a badge of honor. It's like, I work 23.7 hours. I'm like, I love that you love that, but
mhm,
do you really love that? And I think I'm giving permission to all of us out there to be like, you know what? At 7 o'clock, I turn off my phone, and maybe my voicemail is like, hey, if you've reached me after 7 o'clock, I'll be returning calls the next day. I think those things have got lost in the shuffle, and I would
mhm.
love to see that come back. And I know we feel like we need to, and sometimes you heard me say this yesterday, a little bit because of scarcity. Well, I don't have any clients, so I got to make a bunch of horrible choices to get a bunch of
Mhm.
clients that I honestly don't want to work with who are going to take more time, right? So,
Right,
yeah, yeah,
right. And this is the thing that I was talking about when we're talking about client
yep,
service. The fourth bucket is that, yes, your clients will have emergencies, but if you are at their beck and call 24/7, then and you've set the tone that it is okay to call you at midnight or
yep,
at 2 o'clock on a Saturday when you have family time,
yep,
you get to set that precedence. So if you
yeah,
tell them, no, my client service time, and you don't tell them like that, but you say,
yeah,
hey, I have time on Tuesday at
right,
2 o'clock. I have time on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And you just tell them when you're available
Yeah.
They work with that time that you give them then, and you appear busy, which is a good thing. I
I
trust somebody that does a lot
yes.
of business, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that's a hidden, sorry to step over on, that's such a hidden gem that we underestimate. Like, we don't have to tell people, you're like, at 2 o'clock on Saturday, I'm outside doing, like, we don't have to tell people what it is. I'm okay with saying, like, hey, I have a commitment at that time on Saturday, but I do have availability, right? I think that element that you talk about, when we drive them to
mhm,
our openings, it shifts
mhm,
the conversation, right? Every client wants to take control because I think they feel like they need to. Whereas
mhm,
when the agent's like, hey, this is this, I mean, we talked about doctors, lawyers, mechanics,
mhm.
literally everybody else that we pay a higher than average dollar rate for tells us when they're available.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go back to lead generation
Yeah,
for a second and talk about
absolutely.
that. Um,
So, oh, you go
yeah,
ahead.
no,
This is your baby.
well,
You do it.
you know, it to me it is the, I don't put this in a non-negotiable because, like Jen, I classify
Mm,
non-negotiables as the family time, the vacations, the trips,
yeah.
the Jake time, stuff like that. And anecdotally, I've said for years, if you can give me 2 hours a day of just magical, positive relationship building, relationship nurturing, cultivating those conversations with clients, I don't care what you do the other 22 hours of the day. Because in my mind, if you're spending about 2 hours, and let's say you can get a hold of 5 to 10 people a day, whatever that number, or 5 to 10 people an hour, call it 20 people in total each day, you're actively cultivating important relationships. At some point, your calendar is going to start to fill up because you're going to generate those referrals. You're going to start to have that business. And the amount of lead generation time somebody does, and I know we've got a slide about that, it's going to vary
Mhm.
depending on how much you want to make in your business, your conversion rate, and all of those things. But I firmly believe that even a half an hour a day where all you're doing is focused on making a positive impact with your clients is a true non-negotiable on that. And I beat that horse all the time, and I know I do, but it's kind of my job a little bit.
Well, and it's a high dollar hour
It should
too.
be. I mean, $100, $200 an hour is what that time is worth to most agents.
Absolutely. And that's a little different than marketing. So we've talked
Yeah,
about,
good point.
doing your drip campaigns and your social posts and that marketing calendar. And that's a little different than lead generation. And
Yeah,
you put it really well the other day. Marketing is for everybody. You're
yeah.
doing it.
Marketing's one to many, and lead
Mhm.
generation is one to one, right? Like that's the
Right.
yeah. And I think that's it's important to make that distinction. And in the beginning, it might just be all the same. If you're a newer agent or you're sort of
Mhm.
revamping sort of your marketing message, it's gonna be a little muddy. But the lead generation is hey Jen, how are you doing?
Mhm.
The marketing is like, how's everybody doing? Right? Like that kind of
Right.
statement.
Right.
Yep. And of course, client
Absolutely.
services you talked about a little bit.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the time that you're going to do showings, inspections, appointments, your
yeah.
prep your presentations, your flyers, all of that
Yep. And
sort of
honestly,
stuff.
I've said this before, and I know again, ruffling some feathers, and I'm okay with saying that. I actually love the idea of scheduling in my week listing appointments and buyer consultations, which sounds crazy. Like, well, Jake, how do you know when that's going to happen? Well, I also think that there's a little bit of manifesting that happens in that time. And worst case scenario, you don't end up with a listing appointment, and you've got plenty of other things to do. And also the message that it sends to your clients, like we talked about with the availability. Like, hey, I've got commitments, but I've got an opportunity on Tuesday at 3, Friday at 8. Which one works best for you? Like we just, especially with the green print, we direct them that this is our system and process. So,
Mhm.
uh, per,
Absolutely.
yep, personal development. We
We
could,
have to have some time that we're learning, right?
yeah,
If we don't learn new things, then the business is going to pass us by,
yeah,
especially technology and how to harness it.
Yep.
So, growing your business, doing intentional things to grow your business or to learn to grow your business, I think is really important.
Yep. As a business owner, how much time are you spending on running your business, right? That's the
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
So I talked about this in the last slide a little bit, and I wanted to just apply a little more logic to this. Every major coaching organization, and I'll save you a couple of $1,000s right off the bat. Every major coaching organization, when you start coaching with them, will ask you this question and require you to track this number. How
Mhm.
many lead generation activities do you need to do to generate a referral? And when I say activities, it's like a text message. It's a one-to-one. Like I send a text, I send an email, whatever it is, I stop by somebody's house. All of those combined activities, not for one person, but for everybody, right? I
Mhm.
send 25 individual text messages. What is the number that causes me to get one lead or referral?
Mhm.
The I'll say the industry standard is 25.
Mhm.
All the coaching organizations float around that number is 25, which is pretty dialed in. Oftentimes it's closer to 45. It's I say this respectfully. Your number might be 100, which is going to feel painful. But I'd rather you know that the number is 100 than not have any idea, because now we can reverse engineer into that and be like, well, I can only talk to 10 people an hour. Okay, well then now I can do the math and say, in the space of a week, that's how I can talk to 100 people. I need, whatever, I need 10
Mhm.
hours of lead generation time per week to talk to 100 people so I can get one opportunity, right? It's not necessarily a
Mhm.
contract, but one opportunity. And I think when we think of it from that perspective, now we can become a little more adamant about holding true to our lead generation time. Thoughts on that, Jen?
Well, I agree with you completely. And I just was going to add that lead generation is the easiest thing to drop off your schedule.
It totally is.
It's the one thing that, I think I have
Yeah,
other important things to do today. I'm just not going to do that lead generation stuff because that means I've got to kind of put myself out there, call somebody I
yeah,
haven't talked to in a while. And it feels a little uncomfortable because people aren't coming to us asking us for help on, we're going to them and saying,
yeah.
hey, how are you doing? Can
Right,
I have your
right,
business?
right.
So
Yep,
it feels uncomfortable. For some people, it doesn't feel natural, but it is one of the most important things that you have on your schedule every
yeah,
day because this
yep.
is how you're going to
Yeah,
create some
and it's
income.
interesting too. I see such an amazing shift when I work with agents who are like, I'm sort of donkey legged on doing the lead generation
Hmm.
time, and then they start to. I mean, who doesn't want to have a bunch of potentially positive conversations during the course of a day or a week, and have a little like
Hmm.
love from clients who are like, hey, it's so great to hear from you. And you're like, well, that just filled my battery a little bit. And then the agents on the other side are like, no, that is non-negotiable. I need that mentally just to sort of recharge and connect with clients. So
Hmm.
uh, making that commitment, we'll talk a little bit about time frame a little bit, and
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
sort of bottom lines the whole thing. And
Yeah.
before you start, Jen, I live in chaos way more often than I should, and I don't mind saying that out loud. And it goes back to that piece I had that there's freedom in structure. And when I can say this to everyone, when I put together a plan, even if that plan gets totally blown up in the first 10 minutes of my day,
Hmm.
I still feel so much better. Right? It's
Hmm.
like, okay, that didn't happen, but I made a plan to make it happen, which is so much more momentum. And Jen, talk to
Hmm.
me about. I mean, you are a master at this,
Well,
and
I've been forced to be, but yeah, those random things will come up that will screw up your time block schedule if you have one. But by having a time block schedule, if something comes up and disrupts that, you at least have something to fall back on that you can say, okay, I had to use a little bit of time of my lead generation time today to deal with a client thing. So I
yep,
need to fit that somewhere in my schedule. And then you
yeah,
have a reference point to go back to also. You know, it's when you are working. I saw this meme last night and I sent it to Christian because we're both the same way.
Yeah.
Like I had an idea, and then I had a second idea, and they ricocheted off of each other, and neither one of them happened,
Yeah.
and it's so
Very true.
true. If you're working in chaos, then you start working on one thing, you get interrupted, and then you can't remember what you were doing. Some
Yeah.
people, me,
Yeah.
it's hard to get back to what you were doing before. But if you have
Yeah.
some sort of schedule, you have a cue. Okay, yes, that interrupted my time, but now I can go back to what I was doing and
Yep.
continue. Does that
Yep.
make
Yeah. And
sense?
I think that is such a great thing. And I think, the world of like multitasking and right, I remember applying for hundreds of jobs where I'm like, I multitask and laughing at myself to be like, I don't know why you would want me to multitask, but man, I am so good at it. I'm a
Right?
champion of doing it, but it's not productive and we know it isn't. And
Mhm.
just that flow of how humans are naturally wired, not to jump all over the place. And
Mhm.
even if you're good at it, kudos that you're good at it. You've adapted, I think, an interesting way to sort of manage that process. But that predictability piece, I think, is so important, not just for our pipeline, but the predictability of my day. I can manage this, and I don't live in chaos. And I think it's the other side of that coin we don't talk about enough. We think it's a badge of honor to be like, my day is crazy and I do this and I do this and I do this and I manage it all. And we think that sends a positive message to our clients, but I don't know that it does.
No. And
Right?
we talked
Which is
about
a hard thing to say. And
multitasking.
I hope I don't step on too many toes, but the truth is, like,
Right.
what does that message say? Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think people around you can feel that too when
Yeah.
you're working in that way. And I will say, we all say, oh, I can multitask. Your brain actually cannot multitask, as
Right.
there are studies that show
right.
that your
Right.
brain actually
Scientifically, it
does
doesn't.
not
Yeah.
do well multitasking. It takes you a lot longer to finish anything. I
Yep.
used to tell students this all the time, athletes this. It's You can do a bunch of things and be okay at them, or you can really
Yeah.
focus your time on this one thing and be really great at it. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, we're talking in a little bit different context, but
Yeah.
it's the same idea. If I'm doing a lot of things at one time, I'm very inefficient in getting anything really
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
But if I'm
Yep.
batching similar tasks together, doing computer work all at the same time, that
Yep.
sort of thing, then you're going to be more efficient with your time.
Yep. All right. So let's make it painful for people.
Oh,
This is the
yes.
point. Honestly, Janet, like even when I saw this slide, I was like, Jake Donkey Legs. I'm like, oh man, this seems
No
like something
way.
I don't want to
You
do.
wouldn't do, right?
But
And
go ahead.
this is a if you are very high producing, you are creating your income, you are doing things that aren't just reactionary. You're
Mm,
saying that I'm going to the gym from 7 to 8 a.m. I'm not saying that's ever what maybe that's
yeah.
dropping the kids off at school, whatever.
Yep.
And this is for someone who is most productive in the mornings.
Hmm.
So their follow-ups and their lead generation time is in the morning. That lead generation time should be when you are most productive, when
Hmm.
you can make calls and people are going to be available that
Yeah.
you
And
normally
I'll
call.
even throw this in just for a second. Sorry to
Oh
interrupt.
no, go ahead.
I don't even I don't even know that I care if you're
Hmm.
reaching people. And I know that sounds
Right.
crazy to say.
True.
I am still a fan of leaving voicemail messages, and I guarantee
Hmm.
when I said that, somebody's like, nobody listens to voicemail messages.
Okay, text.
I want to, and either way, here's the thing: I want us to focus on the activity, not the result.
Hmm.
Making the phone call and leaving a voicemail message, I can promise if I do that every 2 or 3 weeks, eventually Jen's going to be like, Jake has left me 57 voicemail messages. What? Like, at some point, the dam will break and she'll be like, oh, he's just checking in.
Hmm.
I don't want us to focus on necessarily the idea of reaching somebody in the beginning. I would love us to say, like, how is my energy to make those calls? I just wanted to throw that in just to sort of
Right.
to make sure we had that perspective.
Right. And if you'll notice on this, it doesn't show that we're doing marketing every day.
Yeah.
Your marketing tasks, you created, hopefully with us, several weeks ago, a marketing
Yep.
calendar. What did you put on that marketing calendar you were going to do? Is it a monthly newsletter? We talked to Leslie Hogan, and
Yep.
she does a newsletter. Well, when is she going to work on that newsletter? How much time does she need to block to do that each week?
Yep. Yep.
And so, making sure that you're actually doing those tasks and you're making intentional time to do those things. Is it
Yeah.
setting up your market insights? If you'll notice from 11 to 12 each day is kind of different. Some
Yeah.
admin work, some you have some marketing, you have some database cleanup, your COI
Yep.
cleanup.
And I
Um,
think that's an undersold piece. It's like
mhm,
I want us to go from this really high energy, intense lead generation. And I'm not going to say that marketing is easy, but it's like we almost want to go to the opposite where I'm like, I barely need to use my brain. I just need to do this task. And I think that's an
mhm,
important balance to sort of follow up from an energy perspective. I love that you put
absolutely.
lunch in there. I One of the things you and I talked about is, I call it a fire break or whatever it is, where it's just a
Couch
blocked
time.
out
Come
piece of
on.
time. Right. So even if I end up with 10 minutes for lunch, but it's like if everything else goes 5 minutes late or whatever and it pushes,
Mhm.
I've got sort of this place where I can reset for 10 minutes and be like, this is not the best way for me to eat lunch, but at least I can pause for a few minutes before I get into the next thing.
Correct.
Yep.
If you'll notice too, on Friday, I put in a slot for planning.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about this in the broker lesson on
Yeah,
Tuesday, that you might create a schedule that then does not work for you. It was way
totally.
too lofty,
Yeah.
or, ooh, I thought I was a morning person and I thought those phone calls would go really well in the morning for lead generation or text messages or whatever you're doing. But
Yep.
really, I need to be, my clients that I'm working with actually prefer me to be available in the mornings.
Yeah.
So I need to flip flop that around. So
Yep.
you need to plan your next week each week based on
I I think
how
that
you
was
are functioning.
one of those things that was instrumental for me moving forward a little bit in this process was, what I call like the journaling and the reflecting and making
Hmm.
notes. You're like, well, that didn't go well. That didn't go well. And we can start to think and be like, maybe I could do this. And that planning time for a business owner is just so crucial. And I love that on
Hmm.
Friday. And the end of the day, we sort of, it's the stuff that fills in.
Hmm.
And sometimes those things do go longer. And I think having those
Hmm.
at the end does make sense. Yeah, it might be 30 minutes, it might be 40, it might actually be an hour and a half if things go well. Those are sort of the open ended things. And
Yes.
every day doesn't have to be this. Everything doesn't have to be the same. Let me look that up about statistics on voicemail versus text message. I think that, as I often say, a text message is typically going to be read and interacted with at the time. I typically think a voicemail as something to be done later.
Hmm.
I That's to me the most important statistic is what your clients prefer. And I just flat out love to ask them when I first meet them, like, hey, from time to time, I'm just going to check in on you. Do you prefer voicemail or a phone call or a text message? Right.
Hmm.
And I let them sort of decide that path. Um, Text messages are almost always read,
Hmm.
but voicemails, I feel, carry more weight if we really have sort of a conversation to talk about. But great question.
Yeah,
Yeah, each week
that
doesn't
is a
have to
great
be
question.
each week doesn't have to be the same. Each day doesn't have to mirror the previous day.
Right.
This is for you guys to. I mean, it's your call. Whatever works for you, but as long as we're getting in the big stuff. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Anything else on that, Jen? I know we're going to talk about that for the broker lesson
Oh,
and get into that.
we have a
Thank you,
stat.
Cece.
Cece, thank you. Or whoever typed that in. Anne, maybe she's the one in the living room right now. But there's a 205% higher response for texts.
Yep.
That's interesting. And I agree. If somebody leaves me a voicemail, I rarely even listen to them, to be
Yep.
totally honest. I mean, I know it's more personal to leave a voicemail. They can hear your inflection, they can
Yeah.
feel that you're being sincere, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Um,
And honestly, my
but
my voicemail message, and again, I I realize that I'm the most antiquated technology guy also at the same time. But my voicemail message, honestly, is like, hey, Jen, Jake, just checking in with you. Give me a call if you get a chance. Like, it just,
Yeah.
I, because I know if I make the phone call and then they don't answer and then I don't leave something, then there's a disconnect. So I'd rather just
Right.
leave sort of a sort of a generic message in there, because also
Yeah.
it counts as one lead generation activity, so I can make a tick mark. So that's what's important
Yes.
to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jen, I
Ooh.
love that you gave us a calendar reminder many, many months ago, weeks ago. I don't even know. It popped up on my calendar, and I was like, "What's this all about?" And she's like, "Well, that's our reminder." Jen, you want to tell us
Yes.
about this?
So, in our very first Master Your Craft, we talked about polishing your profile and checking your social media profiles, making sure they're all up to date, they match each other, they're branded the way that you want them branded. And we talked about once a quarter
Hmm.
checking that social media profile. So, this is your reminder. It's on the Kin City
Yep.
Homes Learning Calendar, and it says check your social media. And this is what it's referring to. So, if
Give
you,
yourself a Google, go through
yeah,
your profiles.
yeah.
How, I mean,
Google
the
yourself.
important thing is, how are you showing up publicly? You
Hmm.
know, we say this all the time. Even if you get a great referral from someone who knows you, likes you, and trusts you, that person on the other side is still going to be like, but who is this person? And how that shows up, um, those details are monumentally important for the thing that that client is going to ask for, which is contracts and details. And I think
Hmm.
we miss that opportunity to demonstrate that we've got everything pretty well taken care of. So
Absolutely.
if you take a look at that and you've got some questions for us, and again, we've got the previous lesson if you want to go back and listen to that and talk about just how we present ourselves. I think that was our very first episode, wasn't
Yep.
it, Jen?
Very first one. Sure
Man, look at
was.
us. We're almost
I
in double
know.
digits now, aren't we?
I know.
Look at us time blocking. You.
I know.
Um, so I think the broker lesson here, and as we
Hmm.
talked, all of these things, hopefully, you can start to see are starting to overlap each other in the big Venn diagram of what our business looks like, right? I
Hmm.
need to plan my marketing, but I need to do my marketing. We start to have a lot of overlapping activities,
Hmm.
and for us, really, the big thing is that you're setting aside important time to work on your business as well as in your business. Jen, any other thoughts you have before we let these fine
Right
kids
on.
go?
We are, well, we have another
Oh,
question from Amy. Any thoughts regarding posting your photo on social media with the risk of it being used inappropriately by social media vendors and AI?
uh, you know, a great question. I will sort of speak from my own personal piece. I don't love to participate in those take my photo and make it into this thing, because that is kind of an artificial intelligence training module, right? When it's like, hey,
Hmm.
take my photo and make me look this, and you see those online a bunch. Is it that big of a deal? No, it's just my own personal feeling for that. If we're just talking about your social photos and things like that, that aren't specifically run through any of the AI tools and things like that, I don't think there's a problem with that at all. It's always that little extra piece. I think when we take photos of ourselves and manipulate them and use those as our profile photos, I know I'm going to step on a toe or two, but I just there's a disconnect there for me. I don't
Hmm.
mind a little face tune, a little touch up under the right. Totally fine with that idea. But if you didn't recognize me when I went out, I would feel a little disingenuous with that. But I
Hmm.
think posting your photos as much as you can, and also you doing other things, is such a big piece versus just the profile headshots and stuff like that. So hopefully, Amy, that
Agreed.
answers your question a little bit.
Well, and we had said actually a couple weeks ago, Jay talked about social media profiles, and
Yeah.
it is recorded and has been shared as well. I believe it is in the 2026 resources in the agent training drive.
Okay.
So he talks a lot about what to post and how to post it and
That's
how to
right.
use your pictures in a post to help grow your business. So
Yep.
That might be helpful as well if you want to go and look at that as well. On Tuesday, we are going to work on actually building your schedule. So time blocking, what that looks like, and what you need to think about for each of those five buckets that were referred to before. We'll talk in a little more detail about those and how to time block.
That sounds awesome. Jen, thank you for being my personal time. I don't mean this lightly. My personal time block. I'm always like, thank you, thank you. And in that sense, I value all of you, the agents that time block to make this work, and all the things that you guys
Mhm.
have going on. Jen and I appreciate you working on your business, not just in your business. We appreciate you so much,
Yes.
Jen. I appreciate you. Thank you as always.
Thank
See
you
you guys
guys. I'm
soon.
so
Take
glad you
care.
guys were here. Thank you.